Okay, so welcome everyone to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassie, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace and harmony, coherence, whatever, to the world. Music is such a pathway to peace, and all these conversations have been so, for me, rewarding, and hopefully people who may check in will learn some things. And I think that will be the case today because we have a friend who I met at Victor Wooten's Spirit of Music camp not too long ago, David Acuna. David, thank you so much for joining today.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, we've had some good conversations. We shared a kind of an amazing week, almost a week at Wooten Woods there. And I'll just kind of say what it was that really kind of attracted me to come over and say, David, tell me more. Because at the beginning, I don't think I'm saying anything out of school, but they ask, what do people want to come into this camp? And people say different things. I want to get out of my head. I want to learn to play better, blah, blah. And David, I don't know if you could... Do you remember what you said?
Yeah.
You could say what you had said?
Yeah, I said I just want to learn how to make the world a better place, Yeah.
Very, very simple and straightforward. And I'm like, okay, so this is not just about, maybe playing better. It's a more of a, I don't know, not altruistic, that's not the right word exactly, but community focused, communal focused desire to help out, make the, that's years ago. I remember saying, a lot of years ago, why do people fight? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. We are, in a time in society where we have the means to care for everyone, and we create these artificial divisions. So
100%.
yeah.
That's exactly how I feel. We could just, make a wonderful, a good place for everybody without killing and putting people down and things. And it was when I kind of learned through reading Victor's book, The Music Lesson, that I realized, oh my God, the music is a powerful thing way beyond what had even thought. And it is a path to peace. Potential path to peace. So that's why we're doing all these things. But let me ask a little bit. Just I'm always curious. So when did you start playing music? I know you play guitar but when did music tap you on the shoulder? Were you kind of young? Was it music lessons or church, or did your parents play, or were some of your siblings into music, or just kind of come around? Because I always find it interesting when people kind of get grabbed by music to, ride.
Yeah. I love thinking about that. Like, music for me has been a big companion throughout my life. My family is like, they don't play instruments. I didn't grow up with a family of musicians, but they love music. They love dancing. My dad loved classical music, rock. One of my, earliest memories of loving music was just listening to Michael Jackson, just really loud at home and dancing, like a kid, just completely letting loose. For me, that's kind of how I remember really feeling a strong, kind of sensation of being overtaken by something else, But as a kid, you're like, oh, I'm just having fun. I think that for me, when I decided, or I felt like I had a deeper bond with music, was when I was around 10 or 11. At the time, it was kind of a difficult time for our family. My dad passed when I was little. He just sadly had he passed. And so I'm the second in we're three siblings. We're three brothers, and I'm the middle child. And for all of us was different, and it was difficult in different ways. And my older brother and I, as kids, you always butt heads. But through music, we were able to come together and kind of mourn together and heal together. So it was really that longing for connection and like belonging and feeling cared for, in the midst of what was going on, that brought me and my brother together through music. It's really, he had his guitar, and I would just go hang out in his bedroom and just listen to him play, and beg him to let him play, and blah blah blah. And you know but it was just the way we came together. We didn't really talk about our grief or anything. We just kind of hung out like that. And
But he was
over
already
time,
he was already
yeah,
playing guitar.
yeah, like he developed an interest for it. He worked a little bit painting. We grew up also doing a lot of oil painting. So he painted a few pictures, and with the money that he collected, he managed to buy a Jimi Hendrix replica,
Wow.
Squire replica. And for us, that was like the this beautiful,
How
almost
how
like,
how much older is he
yeah.
than you? How old is
He's
he?
3 years and a half
Okay.
older than me. But so, when my dad passed, I was 10, he was 13. So he was just entering his teenage years. And of course, that's when you develop your identity, your personality. And we both loved music a lot. So it was only natural for him to develop that interest. And I think, yeah, I'm very grateful to him for that, for bringing that home and sharing it with me, because it was truly through that we were able to cope, you know.
Hmm.
And so it became for me at first a way to escape, in a way, like the grief, the having to grow up so fast as a child. Now my mom's like single mother with three kids. um, but music throughout that time brought up a lot of comfort, peace, support, bonding. um, of course, when you go through an experience like that as a child, you don't really, you sort of, I mean, in my case, I disconnected a lot of from the people my age. I just couldn't relate to them anymore.
Hmm.
But except when I was playing music, or except when I had a guitar, people would like want to hang out, or borrow the instrument and kind of like make noise and whatever. And that was just became a big part of my identity. Yeah.
So
So
how soon then did you get a guitar? Did you steal your brother's, and then did do lessons, or were you just kind of jamming,
yeah,
or did you get in a band, and have you been in a lot of bands, and kind of what was the trajectory through
yeah.
high school and into college and all that?
Yeah, for me, so my brother had his electric guitar, and we had this broken acoustic guitar that had two strings, just the fifth and the sixth string. So he was like, "Here, you play this," and we would detune it so that it would sound like a bass. He was like, "Here, play this as a bass," and we would learn a couple of tunes where I was playing the bass.
Wow.
When he wasn't in the room, I would just take his guitar and and of course he would realize later, and you know. But it was through that experience that I got interested in the bass. Eventually, he brought a friend over um, one day, and his friend had a bass, but I didn't know it was a bass, and he just like they just plugged into an amp. Uh, they went to a squash court, and I tagged along. And then as soon as his friend plucked the first string, the whole thing was like, And I was like, "Whoa, that's amazing! I want to play that. I want that bass. I want to play that." And I sort of did the same with the oil paintings. Sold some paints, and got my first bass. So I didn't really start with guitar. I started with bass,
Okay.
and I didn't really have money for lessons. It was just jamming, playing along, learning songs by ear, um, and jamming with my brother. Yeah. Eventually, I switched to guitar because um, my cousin, who is my age, that played, he was picking up an interest in drums, and he had a little band. They already had a bass player who later on became my best childhood friend, but he was playing bass and they needed a guitarist. So I decided to pick up the guitar. Couldn't really afford lessons. We were really, going through hard times financially, but I just picked it up and tried my best to get better at it. Yeah.
So did you end up in a band with them, or did you?
Yes. Yeah, that was my first band. And yeah, we played a couple of shows. We played at their school because the bass player and my cousin studied in the same school, and then at my school, and we had a few gigs like that. It was really fun. We would just go to one of their houses and just jam for hours, like 5-6 hours as
Well,
kids, right? Like, so, you know genuinely, or like, it was just very very heartfelt. We would just like play the same thing for hours and hours and just get lost in the headspace of playing that. So it was really important for me in that period of my life. Yeah.
wow. Well, yeah, that's quite a way to learn. I think Victor
Yeah.
would be supportive of, just jamming and like you learn how to talk.
Yeah.
He mentions that all the time. So
Hmm.
then what was next in the, did you get in other bands, and
Hmm.
how has that led you to where you are now, and what are the things you've been doing with?
Yeah. Yeah. So, we played for a while, then they decided to take a different route. And for a while, I didn't have a band. I was just playing on my own. And the school had a theater, like a play going. We had like a theater group in the school. They had a play, and they wanted the play, of course, to have. It was like a musical, really. Like, it was a musical about growing up, and growing up when you have like difficult. It was very much resonant with me. So, um, they allowed me to co-direct the music, so I would like orchestrate the whole thing, and that was for me one of you know my proudest achievements to this day, to be honest. Like, being able to direct the music for the school play, that was really
You were
cool.
like 17 or something?
Yeah, I was 16, 17 at the time, and so it was probably like 12 songs that we had to orchestrate with the actors, with other musicians. They would happen in between scenes or as part of the scene. It
Wow.
was really exciting. And so at that point I was like, okay, music is my thing, blah blah blah. um but then the time to graduate from high school came, and the time to choose a career came as well, and I knew what I wanted to do. But I think that, given the financial circumstances that my family was in, they were like, you need to do something that will pay the bills, because music, there's that stereotype that
Yeah,
music
yeah.
doesn't really do that. So eventually I went to university for industrial design, and there I met one of my best friends who had a metal band. And I
Mm.
was like, that's amazing. I hadn't listened to much metal when I was a kid, except for Metallica, and but like, there's this other deeper layer of metal. And he was like, yeah, check this out, this is really cool. And they were looking for a drummer. I had no idea how to play drums, so I was like, I'll play.
Wow,
And
good
so I
for
put
you.
myself through the ringer with that one, like learning to play drums by playing metal.
Wow.
So there were a couple of exciting years and challenging years, but really in a good way, musically challenging, and it was really fun. Hmm.
And are you
Yeah.
in a band now, or are you?
Yes. Yeah. So that was throughout my late teens, early 20s. Finished school. Um, there, like, during that period of time, I had two bands. Um, Came to Vancouver. I was like, okay, well, I'm done with school. What do I want to do next? Um, and I sort of, at that point, I thought like, okay, music isn't really, because even though I was doing school and trying to, do school, I was really driving, trying my best to get the band to go somewhere, but uh, it was just not really happening. We were not really having a lot of momentum, or we were having issues with band members. Like, they would leave, and then we would have to find another one. And so
Yeah.
we had really good ideas, good music. We have recordings, etc. But that to have like a consolidated kind of group that performs and tours, and it was really not really happening. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna carry on with this design career of mine. And I decided to come to Vancouver because I wanted to focus more on software, on technology, on the future of communications and all that. And in here, I met my partner, who is an incredible pianist, and so with her, we were able to just continue that tradition of playing music together. And so music now has never really left, even though my profession is not like full-time musician all the time. I play music every day. I've been in a number of bands here, and currently I'm playing with a band called Papaya Given, which is a band with my that friend from Colombia. He also came here to study the same masters I studied, and um, we're now both working here, and I've been here for 13 years, and we have this band. We just like after all this time like managed to keep playing together. So it's been really special in that way.
So,
Yeah.
as we talked earlier, I I like to also kind of ask, find out, learn.
Hmm.
So, what's your perspective about this power of music? I mean, what is it that, I
Hmm.
mean, you gave a really good example, just, music kind of helped you and your brother grieve, get through
Yeah.
some tough times. But what was, and what led you to go to Victor's camp and
Hmm.
say, as what you wanted to get out of it, want to make the world
Yeah.
a better place. How does all that tie into you? In for you, the power of music and what you kind of, how do you view it, and what do you want
Yeah.
to achieve maybe from that, or try to instigate, what have you?
Yeah. I think that the common thread across the entire kind of time span that I've discussed is that music was always this bonding agent that brings people together, right? Like I've met so many amazing people and made so many good friends, yourself included, people from the spirit of music because of music, right? Like there's this passion that other people have, it doesn't matter if they don't perform, you know, there is this common language that we all resonate with. And I think that for me, that's shown me that sometimes when you cannot understand each other verbally, or when there is not a lot of things in common when it comes to work or personality, there's always music. Like everyone loves music. We're musical beings. Music is a language that evolved with us to carry information, really, right? I think that in your website you share resources such as Daniel Levitin's book on the world in 6 songs, and he very much articulates what I think as well, which is that music has that you know power to bring people together through this really strong language that is nonverbal. It's the feeling that it does, the sense of rhythm. In terms of what I am trying to do, and what brought me to the spirit of music really was that desire to understand what that is, at a deep personal level. Like I understand the joy of music in the ear. I understand the fun that it is to challenge yourself to play something, but there's that other aspect that just carries a deeper meaning for me. It's like it does have um yeah, like a driving factor that gives meaning to life. And I think that when I try to put it into words, it is really the ability to connect with other people and the ability to recognize our commonality, our common humanity,
Right.
right? Because we can both appreciate that, if nothing else, right? Um, so that's what brought me to Spirit of Music. It's also a constant search for the self, right? Like going deeper and understanding myself better. Um, And in terms of my intention, I think that it's being able to help people recognize each other as humans through music, right? You know,
Hmm.
sometimes you go into a room, you go to an event, people are kind of quiet, or they don't really make eye contact, or maybe they have small talk that becomes awkward or whatever. But if you like a song that someone else likes, you know, you don't need to know them. Like, they will just like tell you with their eyes, like, yeah, this is awesome. Like, you know, you get to connect in that way. And I don't know what that is, you know, like, I think that that's the question that we're all trying to answer. What is that? What is that power that brings us together? It's just so visceral, you know. um in terms of what I think I'd like to do with that, I just want to be able to bring people together through the joy of music. It doesn't have to be like, you know, with words in English or Spanish or what have you that convey a specific message. It's just a sense of feeling that music together, that resonance. Of course, I also want to talk about certain issues, right? And I think it's important to do so, especially in the times that we're in. But it's always from the lens of bringing people together, from unity and, you know, community, right? Um, and that's really what drives me, you know, in that area, in that period of my life where I was doing that whole directing the play from high school. It sounds cheesy, but that's when I got into people like John Lennon. Like, of course, there's the Beatles, but like John Lennon as an activist, and, you know, Bob Marley, Bob Dylan, these people that were talking about broader social issues. And now that I think of it, to me, that was pivotal in my life, because that's when I decided that I wanted to have a social impact too. In Colombia at the time, that's where I'm from originally, from Colombia. Um, you know, it's always been a very not always, but, you know, there's a lot of conflict in Colombia. There's a lot of inequity. There's a lot of injustice, and the messages that these people were talking about really resonated with me at a deep level. Like, at a time where you're questioning your identity and trying to understand what your place is in the world, there are these people that are not only saying like, yeah, it's okay that you question these problems, and it's also okay to try and bring love to solve those problems, right? Same in South America. There are so many amazing musicians there. Victor Jara, you know, Mercedes Sosa, people that were talking about peace and standing up for peace and for rights, for human rights, and all these things, right? So, um, yeah, I don't know if that's a very, you know,
Yeah.
long-winded
Well, a
answer, but
lot of what you're saying, it just completely resonates to me. I came to music later in life, and in many ways, not just playing, but also not that long ago, realizing that it was
Mhm.
a path to peace, that it was did bring people to seriously brings people together. And I mentioned our mission, making connections through music.
Mhm.
That's all, just connecting with people, but having an intention. Which Victor in the music lesson book, the character Michael says, intention. Intention is the key to everything.
Yeah.
I sometimes I take things too literally, maybe I don't know, but it seems a pretty good concept to
Mhm.
me. And I
Yeah.
just thought, if we do this, we'll just keep, doing that, just making connections with an intention. And next thing you know, we're talking. We had that great concert for humanity in Nashville, where a bunch of people who didn't know each other really got up and played songs for other people, and in a
Exactly.
way. And we've had a couple of conversations just about sort of institutionally or organizationally, or I don't even know, whatever way. What do we do?
Mhm.
What do we do together? I decided I didn't, we didn't really want this. I mean, there was a board of directors of the Planetary Gig Society, and we didn't really want to just try to give music lessons or tell
Mhm.
people new tricks for licks and things like that. We wanted to
Yeah.
have a conversation about these things, because there's
Hmm.
got to be a way, if everybody could just sit down and play a little music together,
Yeah.
and maybe in a structured way, in some kind of a way where it wasn't, music has kind of been, and dance have been sort of drummed out of us, a lot of it,
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
world, you know. So how do we do some of these things? And we were talking about, how do we get these conversations going? Where how do you? I mean, there's musicians all around the world, and I usually find there's some, heart connection. There is some deep feeling about the music when you really talk with folks about it, and
Hmm.
just tap into that.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about how do you get, and maybe anybody who's listening might have some ideas. What kind of things
Yeah.
we do. I mean, the social media is so big, YouTube and Twitter and all these things, and I end up just sending things out on Facebook because I don't know what else to do. I guess Instagram, but
Hmm.
it sure would be good if we could somehow catalyze, enhance, allow, some
Yeah.
feeling that we have that we know is good, and makes us more coherent and harmonious, to bring it together.
Yeah. I think, going back to what you mentioned about Victor's book, the intention, right? Like have a good intention. I love that book so much. Like I've listened to it, read it many times, and I remember very clearly that when Victor says, or Michael says, like it's all about intention, and then Vic asks, and how do you do that? Like how do you use your intention? And he literally just says, the character of Michael just says, just have a good heart. That's all there is. Just have a good heart. And it's so beautiful because in the book they explore these really interesting concepts very deeply. It's like rabbit holes of concepts, and then for something that is the apex of what they're trying to convey, it's just have a good heart. So I think it's really beautiful to think of that. And it's also an open-ended question, what is to have a good heart? But in terms of when you say like what can we do, um, I think that just creating those spaces to allow people to play are really what is there to be done. You've done it through planetary gigs. You did it at Nashville, right? Spontaneity, people just decide to participate. you know like I didn't even plan to be there, but I felt compelled to play, right? Because I think that you've done a really good job at creating a space where people feel welcome to express themselves musically from all levels and all walks of life. And I think that's what it is all about, is creating a space where people can let loose a little bit, um, because that's what peace is about. It's about recognizing and accepting
Yeah.
others. I think just having that, I want to share something that happened this weekend. I went camping with some friends, and we were just like hanging out, and all of a sudden, like we brought instruments and whatever, and we decided to jam, and we started playing this, is this love by Bob Marley. Just out of the blue, someone started, and then someone else fell, and it became a really awesome jam. This is at like at 9 p.m. in the middle of the woods, and then we stopped playing, and then people from other other parts of the camp were like, "Woo!" Like clapping and stuff, and it's just funny how that just radiates, and you don't have to force it or anything. It's the opposite, right? I think that um, creating the space where people can come in and try that, it's really creating the space. I love that when we were at the Spirit of Music camp, um, the Wooten brothers came, right? And they showed us that when you create space, even through music, like you create this vacuum where inevitably people around you will come up, like they will get drawn in, right? as a crowd, it means, clapping because there's this space there and you just know that you have to fill that in, subconsciously, right? So I think that creating that space, what you're doing, honestly, I think it's the approach, and that's what I want to do too. On October 18th, I am going to host an open mic, to try and make space for others. I'm inviting friends to play, and I have no idea what they're gonna do, but I want them to feel like they have a space. Yeah. And so I'm doing that in a studio in North Vancouver, with a friend of mine that's a producer. So trying to follow your footsteps in that way.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks. I think I feel like it's just, the drop in the bucket kind of what can happen. But I do believe in the butterfly's wings, that
Yeah.
some little thing can happen, and phew, all of a sudden, we're wearing different kinds of clothes, or, I mean, it's just style, and then things that where all of a sudden we read a bunch of people read a book, and it kind of changes society.
Yeah.
And so I just think anything like this that we can do, I like to focus also on just trying to remind people that music is a powerful thing that you can tap into, and maybe as a musician, maybe you
Hmm.
have a bit of an obligation almost to try to help society so that you can keep playing, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So it's not always a given. It's not a given in a lot of Islamic countries, for example. You know,
Yeah.
music
Yeah.
is kind of frowned upon. So, do you have thoughts
Yeah.
other in other things that we can do, or that people, your age, you're probably half my age or something like that, but what we need we need people to step up in a way. But how do you?
I think, yeah, I think that it's important to remember. I try to tell this to like say this to myself, or remember this is that we are in the age of information, right? Where it's everywhere and it's overwhelming. And while that is true, it's also true that we're physical biological beings with millions of years of evolution and uh, deep in our brain, right? So I think that if the thing to be done, I think, is to create those spaces physically. I think that trying to rely on digital channels is going to lead to getting lost in the noise. I think that social media, while it allows you to stay connected to some degree, most of the time it's just like it's ads. It's really ads and
Yeah.
some algorithm that feeds you stuff that you don't even care about, but it's so insidious, right? So I think creating physical spaces is really what matters, even if it means that instead of reaching 100 people, you reach 10 or even 5. I do believe in that butterfly effect.
Oh, you did mention, didn't you, there's some groups up there that meet every once in a while.
Yeah, yeah. So that is called the Locals Lounge. It's yeah, it's a grassroots community that basically focuses on promoting local artists. And so I was doing a lot of volunteering with them before and during the pandemic to help, live stream these shows and help promote these shows. And I'm busy these days, and I haven't been able to volunteer as much as I want to. But they've grown significantly to the point where now they are hosting block parties where the main street in downtown, a segment of it is closed to host their block party.
Mhm.
So it's really exciting, and honestly, it's kudos to Ian Cromwell, who is the organizer, the driver of that community. He's a great guy, great musician too, and he has a great heart, and he is passionate about it. His full time job is not music, but he devotes every second he has to music and community building. And he's also passionate about politics, and he works in he's a scientist, like he works in science. So it's just a very wholesome approach to community building and making community better. So I see him as a role model in that way. Yeah.
So, one of the things, going forward, maybe you and I and maybe some other people, anybody, is trying to sponsor more concerts for humanity, or maybe that's not the right term, or more spaces for intentional playing or something like that. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it is great. We got to music. We went to see some friends the other day, and they're just everybody's having a great time. There'd be little kids dancing. I mean, it was a fabulous thing, and that's great. I think there's like I don't know. It's like a doubling the effect, or something when you're
Like a compounding effect. Yeah.
yeah, compounding effect when you're really trying to um, I don't know, seeking something better. Seeking more for all of us as opposed to just even playing music. I mean, I'm not trying
Yeah.
to diminish that. I mean, it's with what gives a lot of, we have to give life meaning ourselves. It doesn't give us the meaning that it wants.
Yeah.
And music can give life meaning. I mean, I know trying to learn a song can give my life meaning.
Yeah.
And so trying to, you know, tap into music so that more of us can feel that. And it's
So,
big
if
thing.
I may ask a question,
Yeah.
for you, when you think of intention and creating the space for intention, what you mean is having a space where there's a message that can be conveyed verbally, through lyrics. Is that sort of is that the angle that you look at things through when you talk about intentional?
Well, the space, those concerts for humanity, they started out as concerts for democracy in 2020 because we
Yeah.
felt, and as Joseph Wooten said, music needs democracy and democracy needs music.
Yep.
So there was kind of that feeling, but by intentional, I guess I mean songs and music that kind of specifically wants to convey a message or open things up for messaging, or opening things up for community in a way, rather than just, hey, great licks and great playing. It's more like, wow, I feel I can, I can add to this intention. Maybe that's
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah. I think that resonates with me. Going back to these people that were so formative for me during my teenage years, what they were talking about were social issues, right? And they were talking about, we are, you and me are the same. We might look different, but we're people. We belong. You know, there, we have the right to be here. I think there is that. Something that I because of that Bob Marley song that we played during this camping trip that I did. We decided to watch this Bob Marley movie that's been just came out recently, and it has bad ratings and all that stuff. But beyond that, it's a beautiful movie in terms of the music and the circumstances. I also watched a documentary about Bob Marley a while back, and what I think is fascinating about it is that his whole thing. Socially, there were a lot of issues in Jamaica at the time and all that stuff, but he was trying to say, like, music can help bring people together. Like, you have to love each other, right? And to the point where, and it was so powerful that, it was destabilizing for the country. They tried to kill him, they called his producer, like the ambassador, someone from the a US ambassador called his producer to be like, stop the concert because you're gonna, incite more violence. But it was the opposite. He was just trying to say, like, you gotta overcome these social injustices and these social barriers and love each other. And that sounds to some of us, to me sometimes even, it may sound a bit too idealistic, too cheesy, but deep down I do believe in that. I do believe in the importance of recognizing that, because everything else is just a construct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Almost like
yeah.
if we're not going to believe it, who's going to believe it?
Yeah.
If we're not going to try to tap into that amazing power, potential that brings everybody together, that feeling you just described so well about Bob
Yeah.
Marley, well, who's going to do it? So here we
Yeah.
are. And, I'm really happy to have met you, and we've had good times already, and now we're 3,000 miles away.
Yeah.
But, I think there'll be more times and more things. And I guess in a way, part of this conversation is also an invitation to anybody who just feels like, well, maybe we can do more with this music stuff,
Yeah.
or it's not just going out and having some beers and watching a gig. I mean, that's great.
No.
That brings
Yeah.
joy. But I think we can be a little more intentional.
I think
We'll
if I
make a
if I had
difference.
yeah, if I had to share some thoughts on that, it would be to encourage people to create, to be creative, to create, and whatever they feel they need to say, to express it artistically, you know, um, because that's what's really missing. Even though we are bombarded with so much content,
Mhm.
some of that content is curated to or created to get something out of you economically, right? But expressing ideas, it's such a powerful aspect of humanity and finding meaning. And I think that maybe there's the notion of having to be, I mean, I'm just thinking of to myself sometimes, like there's that notion that you can only be impactful if you reach that like Bob Marley, Bob Dylan level of impact. But that's not it. It's like do what you can with the resources you have where you are. I'm sure that you've heard that before. But it's just whatever you're calling to create is just create that thing, and something else will happen. And I do believe in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. So
Yeah.
I feel like we're kind of kindred spirits, and it's great having a conversation with you. We'll look to do more things if we're open and want to try to add some good stuff. It'll happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So, David Acuna, thank you so much for taking the time. It's great talking with you, and we'll just keep on.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jeff. It's a pleasure, and fong on. I'm planning on fonging, believe it or not, during that uh, open mic, because I believe
Oh,
it's
wow.
a
Yeah.
powerful thing.
Practice, clean your oven racks.
Yes. I will.
It's kind of an interesting thing, and we don't have to talk too much about it, but it is apropos, I think, of where we are in society. It's kind of this story. It's a little bit like Falling for the World, this book and audiobook. It's a little bit of a story like in Off to See the Wizard. You know what I mean?
Yes.
A
I
group
mean,
of
honestly,
a group of musicians just kind of going around. Hey, we can make the world a better place through this fonging thing with oven racks. That may seem silly, but so what? And it's
yeah,
kind of, yeah, let's do it. Whatever it is, it can be fonging, it can be whatever you want. But
a
way to
headstand
do
or
it.
whatever. Yeah. Honestly, for me, it's really, it's not about the act of the oven rack itself. It's about a statement that you make saying, I believe in a different way, no matter how absurd it is, because it can't be more absurd than war. So
Yeah,
it's really
exactly.
carry like making that statement.
Yeah, fonging is more sane than war. And music is more sane than a lot of things that people do. So, we'll hold on to that one.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, David. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, likewise.